suitcases filled with millions of dollars of cash. And the couriers were always Somali men traveling in pairs. And they got through the checkpoint. And it just really absolutely blew my mind the first time you open a suitcase and you see millions of dollars of cash. And typically what would happen is a Leo or a law enforcement officer would come, check their credentials. I don't know what kind of questions they asked them, but their IDs were always documented, and probably their plane tickets as well. So there is a trail of that out there. And I would believe with all the cameras at the airport that if they started there, they could probably find each and every individual that brought money through the checkpoint.
Obviously, this seems suspicious, if not alarming, given what seems to be a pattern here. So you're talking about millions of dollars flying out of Minneapolis, and you think it happened about every week or so? Is that right?
So it certainly seemed like it happened every week. The suitcases came in, and it was always, the MO was always two Somalian men traveling in pairs. Sometimes they both had suitcases. And so the process was, as a TSA agent, we would pull the bag, and then we'd bring them to a private screening room. And we would open the suitcase and make sure that that's all it was stacks of cash. And a Leo would come and maybe question them and for sure take a picture of their identification, and I'm assuming their plane ticket. I'm not sure. So there is a trail out there between that. I mean, it has to be documented somewhere, and all the cameras in the airport, I would imagine if they'd like to find all this cash, they should start at the airport. Because in the 5 years I was there, I believe $1 billion went through the airport.
$1 billion. As if this isn't troubling enough, Liz, it's not just money you watched leave MSP. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. There was another instance, again, a Somali man that had a carry-on luggage filled with brand new passports. And he was allowed to get through the checkpoint. So where he went with those passports is anybody's guess.
This is really incredible to hear. So it sounds like you're raising alarms with your colleagues, but you have to wonder how many people knew about this. Where were they all back then?
That is a good question. And I don't know how my colleagues felt about it. I've been out of TSA for quite a few years. So since all this fraud came out, the connection's been made. I didn't feel good about it then, and now it certainly all makes sense.
Recently, the City Journal published an article stating that, quote, federal counterterrorism sources confirm that millions of dollars in stolen funds have been sent back to Somalia. And in talking about Al-Shabaab, a terrorist group there, they reported that a confidential source said the largest funder of Al-Shabaab is the Minnesota taxpayer. Judging by what you saw for yourself during the time you were a TSA agent, do you think there's any truth to this?
Absolutely. Knowing what I know now, absolutely. There's no question in my mind that money went to Al-Shabaab.
It sounds like you've had a difficult time kind of living with this over these last few years.
Well, it's been uncomfortable because at the time, it seemed so lackadaisical that these people could get through the airport with all that cash. Time after time after time. It wasn't a one-time thing.
At this point, more than a few Minnesotans have told us about suspected fraud. I've heard from state employees, business owners, even a commercial real estate broker who was telling me recently how they've just been bombarded with calls from members of the Somali community looking to rent any kind of office with just an address, just in case they get audited. They're actually openly admitting all of this. It just seems to be playing out for everyone to see. But even fraud in Minnesota is now making national headlines. It still seems, though, like elected officials aren't really doing anything about it or trying to ignore it.
It is so frustrating. It was frustrating when I was a TSA agent, and it's certainly frustrating now watching the state's administration doing what they're doing. You know, Walls and Omar, honestly, they should both resign in shame.
Why did you want to come forward and share your story?
Because I think Minnesotans need to know that billions of dollars left through the airport. And it was cash. It was literally suitcases full of cash.
So what is your message to our so-called leaders here in Minnesota?
That this just should not be allowed to happen. When they come through the airport, absolutely should not be able to bring suitcases full of cash. Who goes with millions of dollars in a suitcase week after week, time after time, year after year? And all Somali people.
'Cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that